Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. Food noise isn't actually about food. Hi friends, it's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, and today we're talking about food noise and what it's really about. This is the beginning of a 3-episode series talking about food noise, what it has to do with our brain neurology as a gifted ADHD person, and what you can do about it, what it's really about. All of these things will be covered this episode and the next 2 episodes. And so I'm asking you this question, or think about this. Has there ever been a time in your life, I know it's happened to me, where I'm not really all that hungry, but out of maybe boredom or not really knowing why, you wander into the kitchen, and the next thing you know, you're standing there with the refrigerator door open, staring at food. Like, do I want something to eat? Am I hungry? Nothing feels like I really want it, or maybe I want everything, or something like that. I know I've had that. It happened to me more than once in my lifetime, and I've seen other people do it, where they wander into their kitchen and they go, I'm just looking for something. Or they open their pantry, I'm just looking for something. That's food noise driving that behavior, and it's not even about food. It's not because you're starving. It's not because of any other reason other than your brain is searching for something and its need isn't getting met, so it's heading to food. Because see, food for us in our society provides predictability. Food helps us know when we're grounded, and some people eat at certain times every day, and food helps us have that predictability in our life. Now, I know this one is a big one for me, and that is about crunching and chewing. Like, I love the textures of food. And some friends of mine go, oh, I don't like oysters, they're slimy. Well, I happen to love oysters. But what I notice is if I'm having food noise happening, especially at night, it's looking for something crunchy. So as long as it's crunchy, then that satisfaction helps. So that's why there's celery in my house, because I'll find anything crunchy. And if it doesn't get satisfied, there's a part of me that feels all restless and irritable and discontent. And so food noise could be your body trying to regulate by chewing or crunching, something of that nature. And it's totally normal because you're trying to regulate your nervous system. And crunching regulates your nervous system, and so does chewing. And so when people go on like all liquid diets and there's no chewing involved, then they take the risk of having a dysregulated nervous system that starts seeking other things and looking for a way to settle, to feel comforted, to feel grounded, to have that texture that is that the brain and the nervous system is requiring in order to function. Eating also can create a sense of safety. It's comfort. You hear of comfort food like macaroni and cheese, or for me, it would be ice cream or something like that, where there's that sense of safety or comfort. And I see it a lot of times in young children and babies even, where they cry a little bit, and then the big people, the parents or whoever, feed the baby. Well, maybe it's not always food. We don't know, right? So it's so many different factors, and food can mean that we're safe or give us that sense of security. And so if we're feeling off or disconnected or unsafe for any reason, whether it's current or just old energy, then our system will seek that. Because see, if you're neurodivergent and you're very empathic or very sensitive, you're going to be tuned into these kinds of things much more, maybe than somebody who's not as sensitive. But yet it still is important to understand that food noise is your body searching for something that isn't necessarily food related. It's not because you're hungry or malnourished. Many neurodivergent adults, many unconsciously use food to help manage their nervous system. I know I used to do this until I got much better at meditating and managing my nervous system, where we use food to take care of our nervous system, to help us calm down, to help us get energy, to allow us to function in a way that our nervous system wants us to, right? And so a lot of us will use food to help with our nervous system. Now, that isn't all bad necessarily, but it's about you becoming more and more aware that food noise, it has nothing to do with the food. It has to do with the energy and the feeling and the physiological and neurological experience of your body asking you to help it, whether it's to ground or enliven or breathe better. It doesn't matter. It's trying to get your attention. And food is the best way to translate that sometimes. I know when I need to crunch something, it's usually I need to say something or I need to do something. I need to be active. And if I'm crunching, I'm more active. Well, maybe I could be active and then that crunch need would go away. Now I could still go crunch on celery, but the drive then becomes less or non-existent. So it matters that we realize that food can be used and is often used in neurodivergent people as a nervous system regulator. If we're too up or too down or anxious or depressed, then the body, your nervous system, will try to use food or things around food to help you regulate. And so thus the food noise shows up. Another way that we see all of this food stuff show up is dopamine connection, right? We hear about dopamine in neurodivergent people all the time and gifted people, and how we really need to have our dopamine levels going, right? Because if we don't get enough dopamine, then we do not function very well. So we need, as an ADHD person, we need stimulation, things, novelty, things to keep us interested, things to think about, ponder about. And if we don't have those kinds of things and the dopamine is not flowing, then sometimes we will go to food to allow ourselves to have the dopamine connection. And again, the food noise is not about food, it's about dopamine in that situation, right? So food allows us to create novelty, but it also gives us reward, right? You know, I see people all the time use food as a reward for behavior or reward for having done something or reward for reward's sake, right? So food becomes that something new or interesting, novel, and it also creates reward. Both of those things help our dopamine connection. And so I have friends of mine that love always different kinds of food all the time. They're feeding their dopamine. I have other friends of mine who like to create novelty in their food. And in fact, we go to the Epcot Food and Wine Festival every year with my friends. And that's one of the big focuses is the novelty of some of the food that we get to taste. And so all of us are focused on the differences and the novelty and the things that have us different textures or different flavors from different countries. And that allows us to experience the novelty and help our dopamine connection be even stronger. Boredom can also feel like hunger, and boredom can also feel like lower dopamine. And so if you're bored, first thing you want to do is make sure that your boredom is not actually being peaceful and you're getting them confused, which some people do. But when we're bored and our system doesn't have any stimulus or anything to think about or something to do, it's very easy to then pretend like we're hungry or feel a hunger. Well, the hunger may not be physical hunger like you need food. It could be a hunger for exercise or movement or variety or stimulus or creative connection. It could be a hunger in a different kind of manner, but yet our brain translates it into hunger as in food noise. And so I ask you, if you're bored, do you ever just eat out of boredom? Do you ever go open that refrigerator, open that pantry and start eating because you're bored? Well, that's your body trying to get the dopamine level that it needs. And food is not the original cause. We're trying to fix a problem that's underneath the food noise, and that would be increasing your dopamine. We become fixated a lot of times, ADHD and gifted people, on having the perfect food. Oh my God. I have friends of mine who are chefs, and that's what it is. It's like it has to be perfect. It has to be the right thing. Or we're really biologically hungry and we eat, but it wasn't the right food. It wasn't the perfect food to help me feel satisfied. So then we keep eating, and the food noise keeps up until we find that thing that's the perfect food that satisfies that dopamine request. And so we can see how all of these different food noise types of situations and behaviors are not because of food itself. The food is the effect of the spent cause. The cause is either nervous system regulation, dopamine connection, or something like that, where your system is trying to be regulated and harmonized in a certain way. And food is the only way that it knows how to do it at this time. So we want to learn different ways to allow ourselves to feel alive and full of vitality, where we're not always bothered by that food noise. Now, we can also have emotional hunger and physical hunger, which are two different things. So emotional hunger often happens when somebody is feeling shame or grief, or maybe lonely, kind of isolated, or maybe they're feeling understimulated, or the other side, totally overwhelmed, right? I know sometimes when I get really overwhelmed, there's a part of me that wants to go eat for that comfort food to settle my nervous system down. Sometimes people eat out of the emotional reason of avoidance, like avoiding a certain task. They're going to want to avoid working or writing a paper in school or doing the laundry. And so we'll have to make lunch, or we'll have to make breakfast, or we'll have to cook something or eat something in order to avoid something. So the emotional hunger is one of avoidance, right? Or we're avoiding something we know we need to do, which gifted people are very good at doing, right? You all have done it. I know you have. And then we want to sometimes seek comfort because of masking. And this comes because some of us are having work situations and daily life situations where we have to mask a lot all day long. And so when we get home, we finally can relax. And so that emotional hunger drives us toward food, maybe even overeating. You also hear about this when it comes from decision fatigue, which can be related to the masking. But decision fatigue is when you have to make so many decisions during the course of your day, especially if they're different kinds of decisions, that when you finally can relax at the end of the night and you're finally home and safe and relaxing, your body wants to overeat. It's one of the big causes of evening overeating is decision fatigue and masking. Because when our brain gets tired, there's an emotional hunger, and our brain can get tired from lots of different problem solving, lots of different conversation, lots of different stimulus without any kind of rest during the day or any kind of regulation. And so it makes it very easy for us to overeat at the end of the day. Those are the people, and you know who you are, who snack into the night or eat a little bit, have dinner, and then have a snack, and then have a midnight snack. And sometimes people have their nighttime snack and then they get up and eat. That's because the system is trying to find comfort after a day of either masking or after a day of multiple decisions of different kinds that give you decision fatigue by the end of the day. Now, another big part of food noise has to do with shame. Now, shame is different than guilt. Okay, so guilt means I made a mistake. I ate the wrong food or something, right? Shame means I am a mistake, where the person inherently on some level believes that they are not worthy, shouldn't be sucking air. They are a mistake, like literally a mistake. And so that shame trap that a lot of us can fall into, because we walk around in a world not meant for us and then wondering if we belong here. Like, do I really even belong on this planet and around these people? And so shame starts creeping in. And then there's that whole idea of everybody has to be positive all the time. If we talk about anything that hurts us or is a problem, then we're somehow breaking some rule. And so we have this positivity kind of way of doing things, or having to speak in a certain way and not giving us ourselves permission to have the whole range of experience. Another situation that I see shame come up in a lot is the productivity trap. In fact, I have a client right now that I'm working with that every time she takes a break for herself, every time I get a phone call or a text message with how guilty she feels, which is shame because she doesn't feel like she deserves it or she's worthy of time for herself. That if she doesn't run herself into the ground being productive and more productive than everyone else around her, her family, her coworkers, everybody, then somehow she's not good enough. So that's not guilt, that's shame. And that shame trap is very common in our culture. It's common also with people who are coming from situations where they had to work their way out of maybe poverty or work their way out of a problem. And they're working and they're productive and they're doing things. And then that in and of itself becomes its own addiction, becomes its own trap. And then food gets in the way of it all, right? That's where the food noise comes in to try to help get that shame to come down a little bit. And sometimes it makes it worse. And so that's where food noise can really heighten a situation and make it seem more profound, or it can try to dampen it, which then hides the negative consequence until it gets picked up again. So it's important to realize, I think, that shame around food is really big in this culture. It's really big in this culture, especially with women. And it's real big in this culture in general. You know, people look at people and they judge them by their body size or their body shape or whatever. And what I've been paying attention to over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so is I see all different kinds of situations. And I see a lot of people who struggle with food noise and being shameful about food, or maybe trying to find comfort in food, that have never really taken the time to do the inner healing work necessary to free themselves of that energetic or emotional trap, but also who haven't invested in themselves and changing their diet. I have somebody that I know very well that I said, maybe you want to change some of what you're eating because it's not serving you. Not go on a diet and not eat anymore, but maybe some of the foods you're eating are making it worse. And what if you either cut them back or cut them out? To which I was met with all kinds of resistance and excuses, because I think people hold on to their identity and to food around that identity with such a tight grip that I think sometimes they get themselves in a jam. Because the truth is that we want to be flexible and realize that our bodies have different needs at different times with different stress levels, and that food is a medicine. It's meant to heal us and help us grow and be healthy. It is not meant to harm us by having too much of it or the wrong things. Now, I'm just as guilty as everybody else of doing all of those things, and I'm still not perfect. It's not about that. It's about being more and more aware and realizing that if you're gifted or you have ADHD or someone you love does, that these traps can be even bigger. So I think the question, when we're standing at the refrigerator door, staring at all the food, or we have all this food noise in our head, I think that the question, the best question, is something more like, what am I actually needing right now versus what is there to eat? Right? Like, what is it that my system says it needs right now? What is it that's important for my system right now? Am I looking for connection? Do I need crunch because my dopamine's low? Am I feeling shame about something and I maybe should do some journaling or talk to somebody important? What is it that I'm needing right now? I know I started using that question a while ago, and it's made things a lot easier on me, because when I start saying, well, what do I need? It's never what's in the refrigerator. Never. Even when I want the crunchy thing, I might want the celery and the crunch might help. But typically, if I want that crunchy thing in the refrigerator, it is because part of me needs a little bit of dopamine. So things that help your dopamine are like music and dance and walking and movement. And so maybe I'll go for a walk around the block or dance a little in my living room or play with my dog and find other ways to have my dopamine be better regulated. Then if I want to crunch on celery, fine. But the point is to not use food as the solution for the perceived issue. The key here is to say, this is what's going on, having awareness. That's the first step, is awareness. And then the second step is telling yourself the truth about it instead of just medicating or shoving the food in your mouth, paying attention and realizing that there's much more going on within all of us, and that the food itself is not the issue. The issue is, what is it that I'm needing right now? What is my system needing? Maybe it's emotional hunger and you just need a hug, or you need connection with somebody, or you need to hear a loved one's voice. That's not the same as food. So I want to leave you with this thought that if you were able to realize that every time the food noise was going on in your head, that there was a solution or a way to regulate and be calm and feel grounded that did not require doing something with food that then might cause shame. If there was a way to do that, would you do it? Would you allow yourself to realize that your food noise is not about food, that your brain is actually trying to tell you something much more important? Now, if any of this resonates with you and you would like any insight or help into any of it, of course, I am here for you. You can make a get to know you call, and I'll be glad to see what I can do to serve you and help answer your questions. But I think it's important that we all pay attention to the messages that we have about food. So remember, put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. And go out there and let your light shine. And remember, not all food noise is about food. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well. Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episodes, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.